Sanibona emakhaya lami Scelo Ngubane. I'm inspirational speaker. Today we have our special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, sanibonani igama lami nguGugulethu Xaba. Bangibiza Dr. Gugulethu Xaba ngoba ngifundile.
Yes.
Yeah, mina ngikhulele kwaThema. I grew up in Guatemala, but I currently reside in Pretoria.
Yes.
Yeah, ngezinto nje ehlukahlukene. Semenzela inyuvesi as a director of student governance and leadership development at One University of Technology. I'm also running a church which is called Lighthouse Community Center, which is based in Selcott. So we do a lot of things in our church as active people in our community.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
Ngubane.
I was moved by the fact that you started fellowshipping at the age of 13, I think, if I remember very well.
Yeah, I got saved at 13. At 13, I was only 13 years old when I was introduced to Christ. And I think that was a turning point in my life. That decision, it's the decision that changed my past to a better future.
Yes.
Yes,
Tell us also the interesting story about how you wanted to be a cool Christian because you had a problem about how the other generation looked and how they were dressing up, stuff like that.
Yeah, I grew up in a family where I was inspired by Mahrot Man. Tamala Mutleva was playing dice on the street. Was Mutleva, they're calling in bus day. My brothers, I would put Kuzi, put Ray. They were all star guys, cool guys. Suddenly I go to church. I'm the first one in the youth in my family going to church. Hey, now I must adjust. I found myself having this pressure with mailing adjust, imagine, finding alab. Because I find these guys, they're having big ties. I'm a bell bottom type of trousers. So I'm a paper. I'm wearing a Dickies. I'm wearing a mesmerized cotton t-shirt. I'm wearing all stars. I'm having my beautiful sporty. Suddenly I must adjust to this thing. So the gospel ended up not making sense to me. After a few days in church, I realized there's others like me. Then we start organizing ourselves and say, how do we make this thing of God looking cool? Then we start realizing that there's actually no correlation between the gospel and how these other people looked. It was actually their choice to look the way they looked. And there was nothing that prevented us to look cool. As a result, we started doing our haircuts, growing our hair for perms, and then looking cool. But we knew that we were cool for Christ.
Wow. I think that was one of the serious paradigm shift because the change also how you dress was why you nama all-star and all of that. Did you get to a point where you felt like you were going to be rejected?
No, there was a different kind of feeling in such a way that we're doing what the young people today are doing, what we call a switch.
Okay.
I'm sure you've noticed young people are able, when they talk amongst themselves, they speak Tosital. When they come to adults, they speak isiZulu esiqondile.
Yes.
When they go to girls, they now speak English, which is Polish. When they go to a meeting of comrades, now they say, well, comrade. So I had to learn how to switch.
Okay.
I knew that there were places like in my church, they were kind of traditional, they were kind of conservative. When I go there, I switch. But when I'm with the young Christians, I switch again. So I had to learn how to acclimatize.
Okay.
Just like Paul say, when I'm in Rome, I do what Romans do.
Yeah.
As long as it's not sin, I saw it as no problem to say that, okay, I can be cool with my friends.
So you can relate with this.
When I'm with these ones, I try to assimilate and look like them, meet their expectations. However, I knew that what they were doing on the other side was not something holy. It did not make you to be holy, to wear a big tie, to wear back bottom, some striped shirt. There were these old striped shirts which were a problem for me way back. So I discovered how to switch.
Okay.
Because even today, you need to learn how to switch. You must dress for the job you want.
Yeah.
There are places where your coolness does not work. When I go to a board meeting, I look like a board member because I'm chairing a few boards. Like when I go to the hospital as the chairperson of the Dr. George Mukhari Academic Hospital Board, I wear a suit so that the people who are there, those doctors and other people, may know that I'm asserting myself at their level. However, when I go to my church, our church is young, is youthful. When I'm addressing our people, I try to assimilate contextually because I may end up losing those people and not winning them.
If you don't switch.
Yeah, so you must switch.
Leadership. You started being a leader at a very young age.
Yes, sir.
What influenced you and who influenced you?
To be a leader, I think I'm always been that person who's moved. When I
Okay.
see that something needs to be done, either it's cleaning, either it's building, I would just avail myself. Because of being always available, I began to develop skills and confidence.
Okay.
Because when you do something for the first time, you do it for the second time, the third time you're confident in doing it. So I started availing myself. Like, I always laugh at this thing as to how I started singing. The first time I sang, I was in church and they said they are calling the Xaba family to give an item.
Okay.
I saw my sisters, my cousins going there, and I was not part of any practice. When I got there, they sang a song which I didn't know. I started conducting them. But it gave me the first experience of being on stage.
Wow.
Today I got to be in many stages. So leadership is exactly like that. If you avail yourself, if you keep on risking, first time they will laugh at you when you speak for the first time in a meeting. But in the future, after I've done it 4 times, 5 times, you begin to have more perspectives about doing those things, and then you end up leading.
Wow.
So sometimes leadership is about being there. You know, there's a guy I always look at, Ubaba Jacob Zuma. Baba Jacob Zuma is not as strong as the other, he's not as slick as Mbeki. But there's one thing about Zuma, when you look at all pictures, he's there. He has the grace of being there.
Okay.
That's why there's a song ethi wayekhona emzabalazweni. So that's why he ends up leading even in the places where other people will say akafundanga, but he will lead at that level because he has that grace of being there. So leadership is like that. You must be there. When you are there, once in a while, those who are usually leading will not be there. You'll take responsibility, and then you will learn and gradually become the better person in that field. So that's how I became a leader. I was always there. There in church, there in the community. Suddenly the big comrades were not there. They said, "Comrade, can you do this thing?" And I did it. I aced it. They say, "Hey, you actually do it better than those who usually do it." And I gained confidence.
Wow.
And then I began to lead voluntarily and become number 1 in everything that I do.
Wow. So an opportunity will always come to those who have prepared mind.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And there's another one on opportunity. It says an opportunity of a lifetime must be seized within the lifetime of the opportunity. What does it mean? It means every opportunity has a time frame. People think it will come again. All opportunities is like they expire. So they must be seized within their lifetime. So leadership is about that. You are given an opportunity now, seize it. Seize the moment, rise and take over, take charge. And then that's how we lead.
Now, looking at social ills in our community, you work with a lot of people, individuals. I mean, in the church, you have individuals who come from the community. What do you think could have been a challenge? We're seeing a lot of young people getting into drugs, abonyawupe, and you name these new drugs that young people are exposed to. This thing, you know, when you compare it from the youth of the 1976, that there was a particular direction we're going as a country. Where did we lose it?
And even in this, you know, I grew up in the 80s, 90s. I was young during those times. We used to have these ills. We grew up having one pet clue, but they used to hide it. Yeah, they used to hide it, having it clue, and then you'll see them. But the difference was this. Society did not just keep quiet when these things were happening. The problem with today is that we've got a lot of people who are just quiet. You see kids kissing on the street, you keep quiet. You see people smoking, you keep quiet. Tina, when you grew up, any parent could call you to order. Any adult, for that matter, could call you to order. We knew we had a man, a sister, but they hid themselves. Even when they were at the right age, they would hide them. Why did they do it? Because every adult wouldn't dare keep quiet. They would say, "Hey, Nenza Lapo, hey." There was that thing, which is what we're lacking in society today. There's these people who have become so selfish in such a way that we think you must only speak when it's your own that is affected. As a result, we find a decay in society. But the biggest one, it's we have not invested much time in building families. We have allowed people to be so individualistic. We have too many individuals. Individuals, singles. People are no longer building families because Once families are strong, then the communities become strong. Once communities are strong, the nation becomes strong. But if families are weak, the communities are going to be weak and the nation is going to be weak. That's the problem.
Yo.
So we must invest more time. We must be deliberate in encouraging people to marry, people to deliberately build families. This thing of singleness all over the place, it's okay to be single, selfish. It's the one that's destroying society. A society of singles. It's a
Isolation.
society of pickups at night. Because what do singles do when ilanga lishona? They do ama pickups. They begin to go to places of hangout. Today you're picking up one noto. Tomorrow you're picking up another one noto. That's how then decay in society happens.
Yo.
So that breeds all these other things are parents of weak families.
Yo.
So if you want to do something about nyaupe, something about unemployment, something about youth pregnancy, you must do something about building families.
Wow, that's so profound. Now, in an African context, we have a challenge, especially whenever you look at South Africa, they look at us as spoiled South African or nation, that when you compare us with Nigeria or Botswana, we seem to be very behind in terms of solidarity and cohesion and making sure that the ills of the past are remaining in the past. What can we do as South Africans to breed that cohesion again?
I think number one, we must travel. Because if you travel, you realize that we are doing really well as a country. Much of this people being disheartened, thinking that we are doing bad, is because people don't take time to travel.
Okay.
If you travel, unless you travel, you think your mother is the best cook.
Yes.
And then unless you travel, sometimes you think you are the worst. But when you travel and see what's happening out there in the world, you begin to see that, damn, we're not that bad.
Yeah.
Because I was in India the other time. For the first time in my life in Chennai, I was shocked. The entire family unit sleeping outside. We never see such things in South Africa where it's the entire family sleeping on the street. I saw a father, a mother, and 2 kids sleeping on the street.
Yo.
In Zulu culture, that's not possible because in Dotamelis, if Sugu means something, but in India, they have deteriorated so much that the entire family unit will sleep on the street. The things that we see with these Africans coming to South Africa, it's a sign to us that we are doing certain things right.
Okay.
But the unfortunate part is that when these guys come, they don't tell us about the reality of their situation in the country. For instance, when you're talking about load shedding, the first time I went to Nigeria, I was shocked that they had electricity for 2 hours where we were. Load shedding was a norm. I never thought it will happen in our country. But if we had more South Africans traveling, they would be aware that the things that we take light, having water on the tap, having electricity almost 80% of the time, they're actually a norm in other countries. So we're actually doing well. I'm trying to spin it to say we're not doing that bad as a country. Well, there are things, it's only that sometimes another thing which is a problem, it's urbanization. We glorify urban life. Only to find that in South Africa, 80% of the people, they live in rural areas. And 80% places in South Africa, the life of people is solid. These ills that we see in Davidton, in KwaThema, in Tutuza, in Tsakani, in Soshanguve, we don't see them in KwaNongoma. We don't see them in Ulundi. We don't see them in Kwaqwa because the livelihood in the rural South Africa is still intact. Yet we look at just 20% of the problem and elevate it to think that 80%, it's an 80% problem. Most South Africans are living in spaces where there's order. In the 80% rural part of South Africa. Well, we must be mindful that predictions are that the urban areas are going to expand. Meaning that we must prepare ourselves for an urban life. But the question is then, how do we then regularize family in an urban space? So that whatever we've achieved in the rural South Africa, where there are kings, where there are chiefs, where things are orderly, the elderly still have their place, can still happen in the urban area. Because majority of South Africa, I tell you, it's 80% is rural. Things are fine. But we always see what we see on TV because it's Durban. If you go to KwaZulu-Natal, how many urban areas do we have in KwaZulu-Natal? It's Durban, it's Richards Bay, it's Pietermaritzburg. The rest, more than 80% of KwaZulu-Natal it's rural and it's solid.
Mm.
There's a family structure, things are solid.
There's order there.
But we always look at Gauteng, Cape Town, as if it's the microcosm of South Africa. No. Microcosm of South Africa is mainly rural. That's why even the ruling party will still win elections because their votes are coming from there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very great insight. I didn't look at it that way. Because one of the challenge about rural places, the issues about technology. How far are we as a country making sure that we are equipping our young people with technology? I want you to mix your answer with kusabhalwa namanje. I mean, I look at abantwana abasaphethe cool bags ezincwadi eziyi-20 and I'm like, are we not really taking the young people far? Because nobody goes to work manje ayobhala omabhalana abasekho. People now are using computers. What can we do to enhance technology in our education?
I think we need to deal with the issue of pricing of these gadgets and technology, because the technology is out there, it's there. But the question is, why is something that is so cheap in other countries in the world? When you go to the US, for instance, everybody has an iPhone. You go to China, everybody has a Huawei phone, or these other ones which are... The problem with us as a country is that we don't create enough of our own technology in such that we can sell it and make it available cheap.
Okay.
We rely on international market forces, which makes us obtain what they obtain cheap, very expensive. And another thing, we need to support our informal establishment as a country so that we can be able to create gadgets in a cheap form. You know, when you go to India, for instance, and China, you'll find like a firm. We are not over-regulated. In South Africa, there's some things that we bought into which we thought were defending the economy, only to find that they are destroying innovation of people. Like, for instance, why do you need licensing for you to get funding from government to do a certain gadget? We have made licensing. The reason why most of our people do not create is because there's too much copyright. The industry is too protected. In other countries, the industry is not that protected. That's why they can do a product, you copy it, you do it in a cheaper way. But in our country, the industry, which is not responding to our people, it's overly protected with ISO 9000, what certification, even just to get funding. So we need to increase the value of our informal sector by removing some of these licenses that people require to create, so that it can be easy just for me to look at what you have and just create it here in the house, which is what's happening in Asia. People can just look at something created without them being taken to court, because we have protected an industry. Unfortunately, this industry that we are protecting is overly white. It's not dominated by the people. As a result, the people are unable to develop. That's the first part. We need to remove these licensing requirements which are hindering innovation and creativity. Look at what the internet has done. Today, we're able to come to this TV station quickly. In the past, you'll find yourself that if you're going to the normal one, ICASA was going to be a hurdle. Why do we have ICASA becoming so much of a hurdle to stop others from establishing TV stations? Why do we have the banking associations in South Africa creating hurdles for establishment of new banks? When you go to Nigeria, you find 1,000 banks. In South Africa, we're still talking big four in this day and age. These are the things that are hindering innovation and technology. This technology should be easy and cheap to produce, but we have made it difficult because now somebody's going to say you're tampering on my copyright, you're tampering on my licensing. These licensing copyrights are the ones which are hindering youth from accessing technology that is well established. We need to reduce the number of years that a copyright must be able to dominate a market, maybe from those 20 to just 5 years. To say after 5 years, anybody can take this thing and produce it on their own without any penalty. And that will accelerate the distribution of technology in rural places and the likes, so that we cannot be overly reliant on government bringing technology to the people. Look at the boy in Nelspruit who discovered how to make petrol during COVID. Do you know why he can't distribute to all of us? This licensing, these hurdles which are created to protect industry unnecessary. When you go to other countries, even our neighboring countries, they don't have those hurdles. That's why people can wake up today, make a car, wake up today, make a phone, wake up today, make it. But ourselves, as a developing economy, we're not supposed to be having all these licensing, all these hurdles. They are the ones which are causing us not to accelerate. As a result, people think we can't create. No. If when you create, you can come with the phone today and say, I've made it. But do you have space in the market to sell it? Will they not sue you and say it looks like theirs? What is it that made More Fire to have a problem to access the sector? Something which is called shelf space. Spoo created a product that people love, but it did not have shelf space. But I love the courage of Spoo. He went to the street, sold this thing anyway. Today, those who were closing him by not giving him shelf space are asking him to come and sell it in their own shelves because they can see that the product is selling. So we need to destroy, demolish some of the entry points that are being closed by the dominant forces in society. That will accelerate the availability of cheaper technologies because the technology is already there.
Wow. Let me take you to your passion.
Yes, sir.
Men. You said you love advocating and speaking to men. Majority of black men, especially, I will be biased to my statement, they're in prison. What can we do to reclaim the manhood? What can we do to lift each other as men? Because I look at a lot of, I would say, Christian brothers. There is that lack of brotherhood compared to the Islam, that there is no fellowship much of a brother to brother when you look at the Christian background, that a lot of time you won't see Christian brothers in unity about any social ill that they will do together. Is it because maybe there's a lower voice to men in that caliber?
Yes. Yeah, men are a species in danger. It's true. Because of how our socio-economic policies are structured in our country. Because of our past, we had to advocate for women, create space for them to thrive. Unfortunately, this thing is beginning to affect our men. But number two, sometimes I think we are too ahead of ourselves as a country. Our democracy is still young. There are things that we need to do in this country to nurse our democracy, which is young. It's just like there are things we have automated too early as a country. For instance, why should parking lots have so much automation when people are unemployed? We need to be deliberate. We must punish technology in such a way that it serves people. Technology must not be technology for the sake of technology. It must be technology that serves people. But in our country, anything new, we just embrace it without understanding that it may affect us as a people. We must understand that we're having a lot of, it's just like some of these progressive ideas that we like embracing as a country. In other countries, they don't embrace these ideas because they do what they call look at their sovereignty first. In our country, we've opened borders. We're too progressive in such a way that it ended up impacting us negatively. We have a lot of brothers who have come here. As a result, they are competing with our brothers. But also, kunokulimala kwengqondo ekuningi emadodeni. Uzawuthi ithi mina ngeke ube security. Awusipani bra, but angeke ube security.
We are choose.
Hi bra, you can't choose. Beggars are not choosers. Awusipani. You can't be a security. So kuna ingqondo zasekasi ezibhedayo. Ukuthi amashita mawayindile afakana ngekepana ngento eziro. Number two, kuna this tendency yokuthi yokucabanga ukuthi crime pays. It's like we must remove crime as an option in survival. Jengama out. We must deliberately remove it because amachita paya like makhuluma nawo namachita ocabanga ukuthi aslam. They always come down to this thing yokuthi makubheda so bambikati, makubheda so rufa, makubheda. It's like it's an option. Kuwo wonke umjita wodakhi somehow yokuthi icrime ngazuthi it's one of the things I can do to sustain myself financially. I think we must take this thing and throw it out to say the crime doesn't pay. That's why amachita paya agcwele ejele. But unfortunately, Another thing that we must address is our our justice system is not fair.
Okay.
Mangaya lapha eModapi, uye lapha eSun City, kunamajita asejele for petty things who are not supposed to be there. Just because they did not have a lawyer, they are in prison. Kunamajita aboshelwa amathikithi, bakubambe ngamathikithi, uyejele for amathikithi. Kunezinto eziphetty that our people end up in prison for zona. As a result, there we need to change our justice system.
Yeah.
There are things that must not take people to prison, but they must be given other things to do in society so that they can learn their lessons. Because if you can check, abantu abasejele abanye akusiyo abantu abarapile, akusiyo abantu who have stolen, it's people who have done some petty things. But well, also, we need to deal with this thing, yet gender-based violence. What is it that make men to end up participating in gender-based violence? Most of it is because most of the guys have neglected their responsibility in certain areas. Abochere bayaskila asiye skill. Abochere bayafunda bayapass as pass. As a result, le cherry le yakho masuhlala nayo ilife yayo improve eyakho inga improve seqala ukudelela la endlini. Seyiba ne voice la endlini and when you perceive it as ukudelela. Because vele umuntu empowered, if you made yakho i-manager at work, amadoda ayehloniphe emsebenzini, but makabuya la endlini wena usamthathela phansi, kuzoba khona i-conflict. So amajita mele a-understand ukuthi abafazi impilo zabo ziba ngcono. As a result, vuma ukuthi impilo zabo ziba ngcono and ungabi nokuthukuthela okungalendlela leyo ukuthi awufuni ukudelelwa imali, awufuni ukujwayelwa imali. Understand that the times have changed. You must modernize as well in your perspective and begin to see things differently than amajita wakudala. So if we do that, then we'll try to balance things. But ikuzomele senze izinto ezi-basic futhi. Asiyena iskila bafethu. Iskila siyanceda, iskila siyawasiza ama-out. When a guy is educated, he can be able, because education does not give you a job, phela.
Yeah.
It gives you options. Amajita amaningi awana options because they are not educated, because they think education must give you a job. Education gives you ideas ukuthi if le ayispan, what's option B, what's option 3, what's option 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Number 2, education gives you mobility. Masingeke ispane Natal ngeJozi, masingeke eJozi ngeDubai, masingeke eDubai ngeAmerica. That's why amajita bako Zimbabwe agcwele la, because they were educated, it gave them mobility.
Wow. When we do our programs, just to echo what you are saying, even emakasi, abo computer lab, about database, you'll find ukuthi there's only, in a group of 30, there's only one guy ozile lapha to be trained. And about it that they're feeling, if we are better ngempela, starting cheese asebangena. And I think issue of our values, iyabuya manje back, because you spoke about even the community that we no longer share similar values, which makes us not to have a society that is united, because feel ngati I'm affected this thing, so I'm not going to be part of it. Now getting to your experience at varsity.
Yes, sir.
How much of opportunities are there, and the impact that the higher education is doing in Mzansi that maybe we're not aware of?
You know, according to our stats, only about 20% of graduates remain unemployed for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Meaning 80% of graduates, they all get employed. So most people, especially our graduates are unemployed, it's around 20%. So kusho ukuthi isikolo ngendlela abasidesigner ngakhona sinika abantu ama-opportunity.
True.
Number 2, i-South African policy yomsebenzi forces employers to hire black people abagelezile kakhulu. So amathuba, number 3, amathuba amaningi wemisebenzi akhona manje, amathuba, what we call it's the highest level of opportunity. Afuna abantu aba-understand i-technology, abafunde ngezinga elikhona elithize.
Okay.
If you have a master's in this country, 90% of the chances that you are going to get a job. So abantu abaningi bathanda ukwenza into ezifast, certificate, 1 month, 3 months. Aba-understand ukuthi amathuba have improved. I-level yamathuba, like manje, sila studio. You can see the profit points in this studio. You need somebody who understands technology basic. You must understand softwares. You must understand the internet of things. If urefusa lamathuba lawo wokufunda nge-internet, ukwenza coding nyana, ukunderstand izinto njenge-out, it means you're still going to be unemployed. That's why abantu abaningi abachashayo banokutshela ukuthi mawenza umsebenzi ongadingi ama-skills amakhulu, but we can just pick up anyone like Koning replace. But they can't just pick up a professor from the corner. They can't just pick up a technologist from the corner because those things they require experience and a certain level of qualifications. So that's why any skill up becomes important. But mina ngizama encourage abantu ukuthi bayenze, if you want to focus on schooling kakhulu, do what we call STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Izinto ezihamba ne-science, technology, engineering and mathematics, yila umhlaba uyakhona manje. So we must encourage abodaki kakhulu sine fear of mathematics. Maths iyashaya. Namathiza amanye adom anokutshela abantwana ukuthi bangayenzi maths. Lawo mathiza mina yeke lawo ukufundisa. Akekho umntwana ongeke akhona ukuyiphasa i-maths if uthola i-support right. So we must stop this thing ukuthi maths iyashaya and focus on science, technology, engineering and mathematics because wonke amathuba womhlaba alapha. You know nginokubheka le out here la South Africa uMusk ne. He's not such a socially smart guy, mombheka. Momamela, he's a science guy. Uyamuzwa makhuluma nge-technology uyahamba. Makhuluma ngepolitiki angimuzwa ukuthi uthini lo mlungu. Mara the science yakhe yiyo ekhona ukumenza ukuthi own Twitter today. Yiyo ekhona ukumenza ukuthi akhona ukwenza electric cars. Yiyo ekhona ukumenza ukuthi akhona ukunikisa abantu ku space because he's strong in science. Ungamnyatha makakhuluma ukuthi lengamlale idomo. Mara you can't take away that science. That science, technology, engineering and mathematics knowledge from him. So if you know those things in the future, siyodlanga lezo.
Wow. Now, going to indaba yebandla, young people today, what can you encourage young people today to do to come together in terms of cohesion? Because I think I was telling you about your sermon when you spoke about why are we complacent? Why are we accepting the status quo as it is? Because one thing about being a young person is that you need to be willing really to say, what can you do for your generation? You can't always look for somebody to do something for you. So what can young people today do in terms of mobilizing change and making sure that they just don't become recipient, but they're actively involved in the transformation of South Africa?
You know, anything like Mhlabeni, for you to be good at, you must be active. You must be active in it. If you are not active in anything, you are not going to be good at. Actually, I always tell students in the university that your contact today is your contact for life. This is the person. You may look at people ubanyatse today and you also set up for life. If you learn to take people serious, those people are going to be the ones abacceptayo in them. Actually, most contacts esiphila ngazo today, whether we need to make a call to get help, it's people we met when we were young. Again, most people who are successful, whether it's Biko, Mandela, Ramaphosa, most of them were active somewhere in their communities. Like, for instance, you look at Cyril Ramaphosa, he was a chairperson of the student Christian movement at Teflop University. You look at all of them. Jacob Zuma, Jacob Zuma, no ngafundanga, but to be successful is because he was active. When you are active, even when you are not educated, there are things that you will get through your activism, from that space activism, because not sithole ulwazi oluningi from being active. You know, some of us were in COSAS, we're in the student Christian movement, we're in the Heavenly Youth Christian movement, we're in the Greater Springs Youth Council, SASCO. We participated in many avenues. As a result, mayihlangana yonke le information oyifundayo kuzo zonke lezi zinto lezi bozenza, then you become a better person, you become solid. Because I work in student affairs, we always talk about three things that a young graduate should have. The first one, we say you must be well rounded.
Okay.
The second one, we say you must be well grounded. The third one, you must be sensitive to the needs of the people. When we say well rounded, it means that you must not just know one thing and think you know.
Okay.
You must know a little bit of many things. When they combine, then they become a solid person who is intelligent. Because intelligence is not about knowing just one thing, it's about a combination of different stratums. Then when we are saying you must be well grounded, we are saying if you are an engineer, you must be a good engineer. If you are a TV program person, you must be a good TV. You must be well grounded. Akumelanga wakhe ibridge liwe. Like ama-engineers amayapetayo. Ma ungapenda nemele ukwazi ukupenda ngempela. Ungapenda after 2 weeks but le pende yakho lena iyasuka. More driver, you must be a good driver. So you must be well grounded. But number 3, another competence is that you must be sensitive to the needs of the people. How do you become sensitive to the needs of the people? It means you must be amongst the people. You must know your people, because you know this thing as Americana always worries me. Ukuthi Americana happened because of some stupid managers there who allowed workers to sit there and end up being short because they were afraid of talking to the workers. They did not even have a person or two that they could call there. It's because people were just engineers working in a mine, but they were not aware of what's happening in the ground. So you must understand the material conditions of your people. So when you're an activist, then you know kwenzakalani phansi kuhamba. Kunabantu bakhe abakuprefer abadala. Because sometimes I work in a university, you'll find that there's a protest. And then you think, okay, there's a protest. You will think lento abayibhalile yiyo until you ask your people behind the scenes. They will tell you ukuthi le babhalile sibhalile nje. Kodwa into esilula yini?
Issue nayo, yes.
So if you're gonna go to a boardroom without knowing the real issue, uzo waste isikhathi lapho discuss izinto engekho ezila ephepheni kanti ni mister the main thing. Noma umzali ekhaya. Sometimes you'll think your kids are crying for DSTV kanti it's a bigger problem than that. Bane pressure asestratini and other things. So being well grounded, being sensitive is having knowledge ukuthi kwenzakalani phansi, kwenzakalani on the ground. Mina ngumfundisi. Ngine youth earning in my church. I need to understand their music. Ukuthi ubani uNasty C. Ucula uthini?
Uyilalele isize kahle.
Ithini lento kaNasty C?
Ama lyrics.
When I talk to young people, I can say uNasty uyabheda la. I need to know who's something Soweto. What are the latest trends, young people? Otherwise, how do I lead young people without understanding what they like, what are their trends? I lead old people in church who are married. I need to understand what are the issues. Zabantu abashadile. I read, I expose them myself, I talk to them, I hang out with them. Ngingabi nomfundisi sihlangana Sunday kuphela. Abantu imindeni yabo iyaphela, kodwa ngiyashumayela kodwa abangizwa ngithini. Because I'm not aware. I'm not sensitive to their needs, the real needs on the ground. Ngibabona kuphela mabagezile, angazi ukuthi baphilaphi on day-to-day basis. So as a leader, you must know the people, you must be sensitive. So you must be well-rounded, know a little of everything, but you must be well-grounded, know your subject in detail.
Wow. Now, COVID is totally singayilindele.
Hey.
It affected a lot of families. It affected kakhulukazi unemployment, yaveza kakhulu the lot of social ills, especially in families. Because that's where sibone kakhulu sekuvela manje about gender-based violence. Are we South Africa, are we a society that is able to self-correct? Because it looks like every problem that we are having, we always look for a solution outside. What can we do? Ukuthi train abantu bethu ukuthi let's have ama-solutions wethu abe local-based.
Yeah, you know, we need to aspire to be indigenous. We need to aspire to be local-based, but we must also accept that there's a shift. The world has moved. You may find that most of the things that you think are local, they are so internationally influenced already.
Okay.
There are things as local, as a sense, as define ubuntu bethu, ekumele, like our music, our dress, we need to defend. But there are things that we must accept ukuthi azisasebenzi manje.
Okay.
the world has moved. It has changed.
Mm.
So, because I sometimes find this thing here holding on to an utopian view of Africa, as if Africa, it's been decades, Africa impact to globalization. It's been decades. Actually, most scholars are saying when white people came to Africa, most of the things they brought, Africans have seen them before from other nations. So even the sign of the cross, the reason why most Africans accepted Christianity so easy is because the symbolism across, it's something they were familiar with already. Because even when you read in the Bible, you will see Joseph of Arimathea had been to Israel before. The Queen of Sheba had been to Israel before. So the world is already globalized. However, there are fundamental things that still look fundamentally African, but there are things that are no longer applicable in this day and age. While it's our intention to protect what becomes authentically African, we must be careful that even that could have been influenced already. So we must look at the issue. When we're defining culture for ourselves, we must look at yini esenza siphile kahle, yini esenza sibe grand. Because there are things we can't say we have not tested ukuthi maybe some of our ideas as a people were underdeveloped compared to the new ideas. Because there are some of our ideas as a people which were underdeveloped. We had to leave them. Like, for instance, indaba yokukhathwa kwemino kwabantwana. In the Xhosa culture, they used to cut imino yabantwana. In the Zulu culture, basically culture yokuthwala. But ngokuhamba kwesikhathi we realize the culture we can't go back to it. There was a culture yokucircumcise amantombazana in some African nations. But ngokuhamba kwesikhathi we realize the culture iyabheda. So there are things which are fundamentally African that we must leave.
And we must be open to this.
Yeah, to say leya ispani 14. Kufana indaba zokuthi fundamentally African food, ukudla ipapa. Siyazi lemikhaba sithola. So can we really fight for his papa elethu? Like ukudla ulusu. So udla mkhulu Monday, uzosikhulisa lezi zinto. We need to check ukuthi what is it that,
as much as we love it, we must live it.
Yeah, we must serve ourselves ngezinto eziright. Khona ezinye they may be fundamentally African but masibheka ukugcoka isikhumba sizokushisa osilandelwa. You need to be strategic with them, and there's improvement in certain areas. The world has moved.
Yeah, and embrace change.
Embrace change. But kunento efana nomculo wethu, you know. Kunento efana nokuthi inkolo lezo zethu ngezinye izinto.
Yeah.
But khona ezinye kumele sivume ukuthi they were underdeveloped. Others came with something better. So when a better thing is here, why do you go back to something which is not better?
Oh, wow. So what are you busy with now? Are you writing a book? Are you what can we look at from Gugulethu Xaba? Because I know you are involved with a lot of community development, but what are you working on?
You know, I've started a church early this year on the 30th of January.
Okay.
Started a church called Lighthouse Community Center. But we are big on the community center part. We are trying to do church in a certain way.
Okay.
Because there are things that we thought are fundamentally church, but when you look at them, you say, there's nothing fundamental about this thing. It's probably a failed European idea. We keep on embracing it at this day and age. Mina, I grew up in the ghetto. There are certain things as a ghetto I like. I like our lingo. I like ubucleva nje general. And I've seen ukuthi they are not in contrast with the Christian biblical worldview.
Okay.
I would like to embrace them. And there's things like music, which I think we can strategically use music. In our church, we bought about 10 keyboards, 10 guitars. We are trying to teach young people how to play music because we believe that music can help young people to be creative and to have other ideas.
Yeah.
We are trying to run a modern church as well. We're running a mathematics and science project, doing some science camps and mathematics camp because of that belief in STEM. We can see STEM is a strategic thing. You know the advantage of a church, it's that you're having a captured audience. You have people who come in, week out, to listen to one man.
Yeah.
Mostly. Well, we invite a lot of speakers, but they listen to you. It means you are very influential, you are able to do what others can't do. You are like a teacher. These people you can teach them many things. You can build them over years. So, but the question has always been to me, what are we building? What are we teaching? Are we teaching things that can fundamentally change the lives of these people? Are we teaching them how to be involved in politics, how to be involved in affairs of community, how to be impactful individuals? That's why then I thought a church is a strategic place to influence young people, old people, build families. So we are pushing that.
Wow.
On the side, I'm a board person. I love boards.
Governance into that.
Yeah, governance is my space. So that's why I serve in a few boards. It's one of my interest areas. I enjoy that thing, taking decisions, making people to account, So it's one of the things I do. On the other side, I'm a student affairs professional. I write papers in student affairs as a doctor, I've got a doctorate. So if you want to be taken serious as a doctorate person, you must write papers, publish. So I've got together with some of my friends who are writing so that we can become what they call authority in student affairs.
Okay.
Because if you are not writing your ideas, nobody's going to take you serious. You're going to claim that
wow.
So nathi we're writing our own theories in student affairs so that when we retire, people can quote us, hey, Xaba said, Then you can call yourself an authority in that space. Again, I've started writing a few books, but hey, maybe I think too deep. I don't finish some of these books. One of the books I'm writing, it's Almost Divorced. Because I had a reflection how I almost lost a woman I was crazy about. Because me and my wife, man, we are that couple, I saw this girl and I liked her. And I was crazy about her and I married her. But we are celebrating 27 years of marriage on the 26th. Not 27, 17 years of marriage, man. On the 26th of November. We organized a session there in church to talk to couples and share ideas. I almost lost my wife for stupidity. Some of the things that made me almost lose my wife was to fail to understand when she grew up. I still thought it's that girl I met. She was crazy about me. She admired me, And I failed to realize that So I'm writing a book about my experiences there. Hopefully, I'll be able to help other people. I'm also writing about my life. I find my life interesting. Doctor. As much as it's similar to other people, but I think the context differs.
Yeah.
Because I'm a speaker. As a result, I've got an advantage of all the things I write about, I can talk about. So I'm doing that.
Wow.
I do a lot of work in talking to men. I talk to men. It's one of the things. But one of the more I mention these things, I want people to understand something, because there's this thing that most motivational speakers are messing up on in advising people that you are just made for one thing. You are made for, there's nothing like that, Bob. The Bible says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. So, I used to do politics a lot, but I've seen church has placed a limitation there. My church is attended by people from different stratums. Myself, I'm a communist Christian, but I'm followed by different people. So I've quitted politics because I don't want to confuse my audience in church.
Yeah.
I used to be a unionist. For many years, I was a leader of the union. What I'm trying to say is God has given you a diversity of gifts. Explore all of them. You don't know which one is going to give you success.
Wow.
So far, I'm successful in all of them. But because of time, I then learned to focus. I've seen church as a strategic thing that pursues my life, my life streams and vision. That's why I'm pursuing church. I've seen boards as a strategic thing to give me networks and to sustain me financially. I do boards. I work for a university as a director because I don't want to be this pastor that's poor. That's going to be hated by their kids. No.
Yeah.
So, because of my education, I can be able to pay for my bills, live in a nice place. Angifuni ukubona umfundisi wakudala lo bathi ube umfundisi dajikelwe amajezi. Nginemedi egrand izongishiya.
Yeah.
Angifuni ukushiywa imedi yami ngenxa yokuthi anginanyuko. As a
Yeah.
result, I balance my passion with the things that I'm qualified to do. So I use my qualifications, my skills to make money so that I don't charge to preach. Why should I charge? Because God has blessed me. I'm a director, so I get paid. I'm able to sustain my life there.
Wow.
So, but for preaching, to me, it's passion. But I've seen that for your passion to be pushed strategically, you need money. Because passion without money creates frustration. I don't want to be frustrated by passion. So what I've done, I've created a matrix of things that I like, those that are paying me, and those that are not paying me. I speak professionally, I make money. I speak in church, I don't make money. However, like for instance, I didn't want to start a church in a tent because I've seen what tents can do in winter and during rainy season. So I had to think to say, how do I use the profession that pays me to make sure that when I start a church, I have a building? So my life here helps my life there.
Wow.
My life as a professional helps my life of passion. So that's why I don't have that stress. Because my employer here is going to pay me.
Wow.
And my speaking here is going to pay me. The books which I'm busy with, when I sell them, they're going to pay me.
True.
So this side, I don't have to cry. So I use this life to subsidize this life.
Oh wow, that's very awesome. And in terms of your goal with the church, maybe can you give us a few goals that you want to achieve?
Yeah, we're pushing this thing. Well, first and foremost, the church must be Bible-based. It must be Christocentric and it must be spirit-led. Those are fundamentals must be in place. Must preach the word, must preach the gospel, must do the right things so that the Holy Spirit can move. We believe in that. However, I despise the idea of an empty building and only used twice a week. I find it so stupid. We're over investing as churches. We're having these buildings, but only twice a week they're using. So that's why we're using it as a conduit for community development, our church.
Okay.
That's why we're doing this music thing. We're teaching students how to play music. We're using it as a base for community development using mathematics and science and other things. But the biggest dream that I have is to use our church as a place where families can find healing. I've seen what is it that causes families to collapse. My family almost collapsed. So I've dedicated my life to do counseling, talk to couples, give them advice, especially amadota. Amadota maningi, their families are failing because amachita waspani or abafazi bahola ngcono kunawo. So I'm trying to give amachita a realistic advice. Say, inkinga yakho wena akusukuthi, because people have told us marriage is collapsed by lack of sex.
It's not true.
Majority of the times, marriage is collapsed by two things: money and lack of understanding when the other partner grows up. If you miss that, your marriage may collapse. So my job is to build those families strategically. Number 3, my job is to make sure that I encourage young people that education is a way out. Because mina khulele maphathisini etema emsane. But because my mother encouraged me to do one thing, he said, go to school and pass. I went there and did only that thing. Went to school and I passed.
Wow.
And in South Africa, if you are poor but you pass, you will be funded on your education. And that's a big advantage for our country. So, bafethu what the way to go to school and pass. Nizoba grand.
Wow. That is with Dr. Xaba. And I want you to maybe say your last encouraging words to our audience. Just anything that is in your heart, just to lift our audience who's watching and saying, namhlanje, after watching this show, this is the decision that I'm making.
Okay. Advice number 5 is simple. Stop making excuses. You're on your own. No one is going to come and free you. No one's going to come and help you. Stop relying on government for everything. Akren lama 350, but itate and use it strategically to uplift your life. Because no one's going to save you. No one's going, let me say this thing again. No one's going to save you. You are the one ekumele uvuke uyithathe and do something about it. Be moved. Take action. Ngayo yonke into obhekene ngayo. Akekho umuntu ozokuphakamisa. Bekunendoda eBhayibhelini for 38 years imele abantu ukuthi bazoyinceda. Wena akumelanga ume for 38 years for people to help you. Vuka uzenzele, vuka uyithathe and uzoba grand. It's
Ola Dr.
possible.
Xaba.
We've done it and we are doing it.
It's happening.
It's on, my brother.
Wow. Vuka uzenzele, vuka uyithathe, 38 years emningi. Ulinde
Yeah, it's too
somebody.
much.
So take responsibility. Make sure that your life it's your responsibility. And I hope and believe that today's episode has inspired you. May you be inspired by life, Dr. Xaba. May you also look ukuthi yizini azenzile so that your life can be inspired. Kuthiwa inyoni yakha isidleke ngeinsiba zenye inyoni. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
learn from others and be able to have a brighter future. May God bless you. May God be with you. Thank you so much.
That's more.